So, who here is a fan of Willow?
The Willow show is a poor attempt by Disney Lucasfilm to be relevant in the fantasy genre next to The Rings of Power, The Witcher, or House of the Dragon. The show has the ambition to subvert the genre with bad writing, atrocious dialogue, a stupid story, an uninspired world, and some boring characters. Unfortunately, most shows already do, so the joke is not very funny. The writers of Rings of Power think they are very smart people who can improve upon the works of Tolkien. The writers of The Willow show, however, know they are not very smart, so instead they act like every poor creative decision is part of a joke. I thought it would be great to use a little person in a lead role, said Lucas in '89. A lot of my movies are about a little guy against the system, and this was just a more literal interpretation of that idea. The little guy is now crushed under the boots of Disney Plus and forced to create content between Endor content and Black Panther content. The Willow show was made after Kasdan and Davis met on the set of Solo, a Star Wars story. I haven't watched Solo, a Star Wars story, but I'm sure it made some of its money back and was enjoyed by all the people who enjoyed it. Knowing this, there's no way The Willow show can be a disaster. The only thing the show doesn't completely subvert is the overarching story, which can fit on a post-it note like many other fantasy stories. The prince is kidnapped by the bad guys. His sister, Willow, the Chosen One, and 3 randoms band together to save him. No one expects a sequel of a 35-year-old movie to be the same, but no one expects it to be completely different either. The Willow show has nothing to do with the movie. Willow was a family movie that everyone could enjoy in '88. The show, however, is marketed towards young adults, which is a completely different demographic. In my humble opinion, the kind of young adults targeted by the show don't actually exist, because it's a niche inside a niche. But what do I know? A show for young adults could work, but not when it's written by very young people or people who were very young 50 years ago. It doesn't help that it's not just a show with teenagers, but a teen drama. What does teen drama have to do with Willow? I don't know. Willow was 17 when he left his wife and kids at home to go on a quest. Is that drama? She loves her, but she has to leave to become a knight, and she loves her back, but she doesn't want to admit it even though she kissed her without consent in episode 1. But then she confesses her feelings, and in the end they kiss passionately after asking for consent. So that's lovely. But the problem is that she's a princess and she's already engaged to a prince she doesn't love. He loves her, but she loves someone else, and it doesn't matter because he's forced to marry someone he doesn't love anyway, who, you guessed it, is this one, and as mentioned before, is already in love with that one. She loves him way too much even though they know each other for probably a week, and he does love her, but he's a prince and she's a nobody, so it might not be allowed, but actually she's a chosen one, so it should be fine. But then he meets this woman and she kisses him, which is interesting because the only thing we know about this character is that he sleeps around. He asks her to stop, so is that character development right there? But then he gets possessed and she says, "Ugh, I'm not your dove. You're being gross and very creepy. No, you're being so creepy. If old you could see the new you, he'd gag." So he makes out with the evil woman in front of her, and after an epic fight he's not possessed anymore, but the season just ends. So we don't know if their love will endure. Find out in season 2.
Hold it, hold it. What is this? Are you trying to trick me? Is this a kissing book?
But in a way, if they are kissing, then they are not talking. Which is good, because the dialogue is quite something.
And in about 10 seconds, I'm gonna kiss you.
Kiss.
So if you don't want that...
Yes, I
Stop talking, please.
would be very into that.
Kiss. Just kiss. Oh my god. Where was all this in the movie? This show could have been made for young adults, but it didn't have to be that dramatic. It filters out anyone who hates these kinds of stories. I don't know, when Davis said,
The film was an enchanting mix of adventure, magic, romance, and yes, even a little humor.
I'm not sure he meant that much romance. I realize it's from a mockumentary, but for some reason it captured what Willow is about more than the actual show. Romance became teen drama, and now the little humor turned into the big laughs. The humor in the movie was mostly driven by the plot. The characters were not cracking jokes for the viewers every 5 seconds. There's the comic relief, the straight man, the mentor, the scoundrel, and the princess. Yep, Star Wars and Willow were written by the same guy. Even this hilarious line,
"There's a peck here with an acorn pointed at me!"
is Mad Martigan making fun of Willow. He's not doing a one-man show in a cage to make everyone laugh. It's also amusing as a viewer because the acorn is dangerous but he doesn't know. It's the same with this.
What are you staring at?
Your leg.
From the viewer's perspective, it seems like he's going to say something charming to her, but he doesn't.
I'd like to break it.
It's funny because it's unexpected, but for the character, this is not a joke.
You may find that difficult, slave, while I'm up here and you're down there.
I hate that woman.
He's marching to his death. Mad Martigan dressing like a woman is a running gag, but he doesn't try to be funny.
Lose your skirt?
He slept with a married woman, but her husband is coming home, so obviously she dresses him like a woman to trick her husband. Eventually the husband starts a fight when Mad Martigan is revealed, allowing our heroes to escape. The character is not trying to be funny, the joke serves the story and the dialogue. The snowball incident happened because Mad Martigan fell off the sledge at the end of a chase. It's silly, but it's not its fault. If anyone wants to argue it's the same humor as in the show, I respectfully disagree, but I don't care to change your mind, so I'll give you that one. That's one snowball gag in the movie against 827 in the show. Doing it once doesn't mean it's okay to do it all the time. The cage bit is a clever way to give information on the world, offering more insight on Willow's character, as well as introducing Mad Martigan to the viewer and Willow. He's in the cage for a reason, and none of the characters are having fun here. The movie had a great balance between kid and adult humor.
Mad Martigan, I'm warning you! Oh!
Willow's vain attempt at threatening him reaching for the apple, the way he just drops it, how it falls on Willow's head, the idea that he got hit by Mad Martigan's fake breast, and all of this happening because of a joke set up earlier. There's something amusing for kids, teenagers, and adults. The Willow show doesn't have this, of course, because it's a multi-layered joke and it requires too much understanding of comedy. The comedy of the show feels like it's making fun of itself, but in a bullying kind of way, almost like the people who made it hate the show and themselves. It's at the expense of the characters, the tone, and the plot. Every character has a cool sense of humor, is a clown, or is the butt of the joke. The difference between the movie and the show is Mad Martigan would have been the one coming up with the idea to dress like a woman because he loves the feel of the fabric on his skin. It's Mad Martigan rolling himself into a snowball of his own volition, not because there's no room in the sledge, but because he doesn't want to share it with someone he doesn't like. It's Mad Martigan deciding to sleep in the cage and trapping himself in by accident. It's Willow cracking jokes at the expense of the pigs and making snarky comments about it. Do you remember a scene in Willow where the story stopped to show a shampoo commercial with a man making silly faces at the camera? Me neither. What's great about the comedy in Willow is that it's easy to ignore if the viewer doesn't find it funny because it's trying to make you laugh but it doesn't expect you to. If the apple bit is not funny to you, you probably won't even register it and move on. When the characters are telling jokes and the whole point of the dialogue is to make you laugh, it's impossible to ignore a bad joke, because it's physically painful to watch. The shower bit is only here to make you laugh. If you don't, it's the longest 18 seconds of your life. It could be funny, but there's no setup and it doesn't match with the tone of the scene. That's what the writers do not understand. Because in the show's defense, it's the first season, and like many sitcoms, the Willow show is allowed to make mistakes. However, there are some baffling choices that are unforgivable even for a first season. The tone is completely ruined by some of the jokes and there's no excuse for it. The first half of the first episode feels like a real show. Don't get me wrong, it's bad but it's lighthearted and dark like the movie. In fact, it's so dark you can't see what's happening, but that's besides the point. At the 30 minutes mark, the show turns into a comedy. The second episode is the same. It starts like a normal show, but by the end it's a comedy. Then the third episode happens and nothing is serious anymore until episode 7. They are back at trying to make an actual show. Obviously it's still bad, mostly because they've wasted 6 episodes so the payoffs are not deserved and no one cares about the characters, but they try. In the end they are all best friends, happy and very skilled with swords and magic. It's like they forgot an entire season. Allura went from a stupid nobody to a badass witch able to kill the evil woman without a wand. She did receive training, but it's clearly rushed. And it's the same with every other character arcs. There's so much time wasted on the jokes, the show needs 10 more episodes to make it believable and satisfying. And now it's time to rank the 3 most tone-deaf moments in the show. At the top spot we have the death of the first member of the Fellowship. He tells everyone to stay focused because it's serious and dangerous, so obviously he dies. A fun action music starts to play and a character says a silly line in a silly voice.
Really? Thank you.
Doesn't seem to be a lot of tension.
Yeah, this is exactly why you can't come with us.
Alright, now they realize the danger. He almost died, it's serious.
Why are you riding so slow? We're being chased!
And we're back with the silly lines and the silly voices.
Ormond, you're supposed to be dead! Well, that's not me, mate. I think you're thinking of someone else.
Now they're having a chat. Orman is about to fall off the edge and starts yelling a funny word.
Sugala!
Sugala?
Sugala!
They all yell at Bowman, but they are all following him for some reason.
Sugala!
Lucky for them, there's a river deep enough and the bad guys stop chasing. About a minute later, we get the payoff to the funny word.
What does Sugala mean?
It's an ancient Angorian word. It means stop.
And that's it. The confusing tone is awful, the comedic timing is terrible, and it comes out of nowhere because the viewer doesn't know it's not a real show yet. More importantly, no one is talking about the guy who died. He's never mentioned the entire show. What is wrong with these people? The guy was nice and everything, we don't want him to die.
I'll go. I've known Eric since the day he was born, and he's as close to a son as I'll ever have.
And he was killed by the people they'll dance with 2 episodes later. This is insane. In Willow there are silly chases too, but the small difference is that no one died prior to the snowball and the apple incident. Next, the number one most tone-deaf moment in the show is the death of the second member of the Fellowship.
Please let me help you.
It's very serious.
If we could just get everyone to stop fighting and get back in the wagon. Second thoughts, keep fighting.
It's very funny.
Simon, I can fix you.
I can't.
It's very serious.
Okay. Well, now you can do magic. You want to fly us out of here? No? Well, then I'm going up the big scary steps.
It's very funny. Less than 2 minutes later, the credits are rolling with this song. It's insane. And the winner for the most terrible tone-deaf moment is the introduction of the 2 woodcutters who get slaughtered shortly after. Elora is running from the bad guys, so it's serious. She runs through a forest and meets 2 woodcutters. She does a one-woman show for, I kid you not, more than 4 minutes.
They're not going to be so wicked when me and Anna finish with them. Oh, if you get my meaning.
Then the bad guy appears and plunges his sword into her stomach. They run away, and then the second woman is killed. I'm still shocked. It has nothing to do with the story, it destroys the tone of the scene, it comes out of nowhere, it's too long, and it's horrifying. It wasn't bad guys in disguise trying to trick her. It really was 2 women and now they're lying dead in the woods while our Fellowship is cracking jokes. I love dark humor, but this isn't it. And then they act like it's supposed to be a warning to break her spirit.
You're responsible. Your arrogance and defiance got them killed.
But he's clearly the bad guy and she's clearly an innocent woman, so it's pointless and stupid. And it's barely mentioned in the next episode.
I can't save anybody.
It's framed as if she's too weak to save even them, but it's been like 1 day since Willow told her who she is. You can't come to such a conclusion after 1 day. This is so dumb. None of this is character development. It's garbage. 4 people died like clowns. I hate this, I hate the characters, and I hate the show. I don't recall seeing Monty Python skits in the movie.
We thank thee, Lord, that in thy mercy... Come on, then! What?
This is not what lighthearted means. That's not a little humor. The tone is wrong, and none of this has anything to do with the movie. What's interesting about the show is that you want the episode to end, but at the same time you dread the ending because the music choices are atrocious. There's a Metallica cover, a Soundgarden cover, there's Good Vibrations, Money for Nothing, a bunch of modern songs, and then on top of that there's the great music of James Newton Howard. There's no coherence and I'm not sure what the lyrics have to do with the show, but I'm not a musician, so what do I know? The only time there was an interesting choice is when they put a twist on a fantasy piece.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. I thought you were totally going to let go of her.
It's fairly discreet and lasts 10 seconds. It subverts the genre without overdoing it. It's enough, you don't have to put a cover of Crimson and Clover in the middle of your episode on full blast. And then there's my favorite part of the whole show. There's a clip straight up from a pop song on MTV. It would have been so much better if Willow had started breakdancing to Billie Jean when he didn't want to take the baby. Instead we got the boring generic fantasy music of James Horner. Probably why Willow isn't mainstream. The same criticism applies to the costumes. It's fine to use modern fabrics, but don't overdo it. Brownies were wearing rat fur. Now they are wearing printed shirts and this dog thing. It could be a rat onesie, but even then there's nothing clever about it. Maybe all brownies don't wear rat fur, so I won't say it's breaking continuity, but this is a very lazy choice of modern outfit. And then there's the uniform of the woodcutters. In episode 5 there is a bewitched forest called the Wildwood in which weird things can happen. Why are you not using the Wildwood in this episode instead? Their costumes would make sense and their deaths would be less horrifying. In the movie, Mad Martigan is wearing women's clothes for over 20 minutes. It's subversive, it makes sense with what was established, and it's even a running gag. In the Willow show, the silly costumes are here for no reason, don't improve the story, and come out of nowhere. And it's so poorly executed too. It looks like a rat onesie, which is a reference to the movie, but it's not obvious, so no one gets the bad joke. In The Color of Magic, Two Flower is wearing a questionable outfit for the time, but there is a perfectly good explanation that makes a lot of sense. He is a tourist. It's celebrity humor, yet it makes sense in the world building. Stupid costumes for the sake of having stupid costumes is not funny, it's stupid. The targeted audience, the tone, the jokes, the music, and the costumes have nothing to do with the movie, but hopefully the dialogue will.
And then we'll meet up at that Veil of Boobs or whatever.
It doesn't. The show is a teen drama, and unfortunately the dialogue reflects it. Willow doesn't always have dialogue accurate to the time period. I don't expect the Willow show to do. In fact, I'd rather it didn't. It's better to get a fantasy show with common speech than a show where the writers try hard to do something they can't and insult people's intelligence. Willow has some modern language, but the difference is the writers didn't take it too far.
One move, jackass, and you really will be a woman.
And like the snowball, just because the movie does it sometimes doesn't mean you're free to do it all the time.
Eric, you're gonna lose interest and then you're gonna move on to the next. It's like the one way you're totally consistent.
No, you know, your generation has like zero attention span for epic tales.
It's good to spend a little one-on-one time together without the constant interruption of the group think.
That I'd be the damsel in distress in your sicko fantasy?
No.
Little witty banter, casual innuendo or two, see if I'm game.
Funny story. Well, not ha-ha funny. More like a ain't life funny kind of funny.
What I would like is for you to get off your ass, get a job, have a hobby, do something. She just wants to be famous now. They all want to be famous for what? I don't know. Decoupage!
The thing is, using some modern language in a fantasy story improves the accessibility because not everyone enjoys formal speech, and if it's done with care and the words used are not the latest popular ones on the internet, then it doesn't break the suspension of disbelief. One could argue language evolves and words like jackass don't sound out of place to us today, which is true, but still let's not pretend that people in the 80s were talking like Shakespeare. The words used in the Willow show already existed back then. Willow could have been talking like Bill and Ted, yet the film managed to do without.
You totally blew it, dude.
The dialogue is too jarring not because teen dialogue is objectively bad, but because that's not what was established in this fantasy universe. This is a continuity error because in less than 16 years people started to talk in a completely different way. Talking about continuity, the Willow show doesn't even try. We are told it's been 200 moons since the end of the movie. Why are they counting in moons as if the world building and the language mattered? Why are they talking in moons when we have no idea how long a moon cycle is? Are you telling me your targeted audience is expected to do math? 200 moons on Earth is about 16 years, so Kit would be barely 15. According to Wikipedia, it's been 17 years, so Kit would be barely 16. The problem with not telling her age is that it's weird to watch a woman clearly in her 20s acting like a child.
You're picking out my clothes now? What am I, 6 years old?
Going back to Bill and Ted, they are 25 years old men playing teenagers, but the difference is they go to school so their age is obvious. And now the hilarious bit. So the baby went from 1 day old to 16 years old, but Willow went from 17 years old to 52. The actors playing the Queen and Willow aged 35 years, but we're told it's only been 16 years. It's just silly. And that's one of the biggest issues with the show. There are very obvious flaws making the viewer wonder whether anything is intentional or not. We don't know what is part of a joke and what is just bad, which is very useful to deflect any criticism. Why are they using a stupid wagon in a race against time? Why are there no soldiers in the castle? Why are they sending the princess to rescue the prince? Why is this flashback so terrible? Why are they dancing with the people who killed the old guy? Why is there a house in a prison cell? Why are you not telling your actor about the lightning? It looks so stupid. None of this is self-awareness. None of this is treated as a joke. It's just bad. I've seen people comparing this show to a D&D campaign, which is confusing to me because I did some back in the day and it wasn't the same at all. I was having fun with my friends.
My name is Bing Bong the Archer. I'm an archer and such.
If it was the intent of the writers, then perhaps they've never done one or had terrible friends.
Is that what you put in your muffins? Among other things. Can you just go and check if they have any? You think that's something people just have in their cupboards?
What a fun game of D&D. They clearly don't hate each other. It's just friendly banter. What a joke. A D&D campaign entirely relies on the people you're playing with, so maybe I'm the only one who played with normal people. Maybe I was in the only group that wasn't listening to Metallica while fighting wolves in the forest. The characters are what you would expect from a Disney Lucasfilm production. This is the dumbest fellowship I've ever seen and I don't want to talk about the characters. I hate them all in their own way, even Elora and Bowman, who started off as promising. The three actresses are playing the same character with a single trait to differentiate them. One is annoying, one is just there, and one has no consistency. Two of them go on a character arc and I kid you not, by the end they are all playing the same character. The writers made them overcome different challenges to trick the viewer into believing they are different people, but they're not. It's insane. The three actors are playing characters with different levels of stupidity. And then there's Davis, who is dead inside.
When Kaya needed me, I wasn't there. By the time I got back, it was too late. Rannon, he blamed me. That's why he ran away. Mims is all I have left.
He seems like he doesn't belong with them whatsoever, and I wonder how much the absence of Val Kilmer impacted his performance. I don't think he ever imagined doing Willow without him. There is an arc for Elora's hair. I don't know what to say. The writers think it's clever, but it's really not. Her hair is blonde at the beginning because it was bleached when she was a child. Every time she does magic, some of her hair turns red. It takes her about 5 episodes to get a full head of red hair. Why? Did the writers watch Frozen and thought they could do it too? It doesn't make any sense. What does it have to do with anything? It's not magic, it doesn't give her power, and the color was never mentioned in the movie. Is it here just to have a teenager change hair color like the cool kids? And the best part is that it's never mentioned by Elora, her boyfriend, or any member of the Fellowship. Remember the Wildwood from earlier? Well, nothing really happened there. Is this a joke? It's not played as a joke, it's never addressed, we don't even know when they leave the forest. The bad guys even stopped chasing them because they are afraid of it. So maybe the joke is that the forest is not cursed even though it's poorly executed. But the problem is that something did happen. There was a butterfly. So is it cursed but in a good way? I can't tell if this is a terrible joke or if they forgot about it. And then there's the scene where I yelled at my screen. They spent 7 episodes traveling to a place. Episode 7 is just them traveling across the sea. They reach their destination, but there's nothing. Alright, fine, but how is it handled? The reaction of 3 of the characters is not anger or desperation. They immediately turn back without talking about it.
The city is supposed to be here.
It isn't. I'm turning back.
Yeah, me too.
We went as far as we could, Elora.
They traveled the sea for weeks, and that's all they have to say about it? It was the whole point of their journey, and that's all they have to say about it? They can't turn back anyway because Graydon the Moron freed the creature that brought them here. This scene is very annoying. The only reason it exists is to have Elora give a nice speech and form a bond with Kid that is not deserved. The Willow show is almost 4 times longer than the movie, and somehow it has less plot, less character development, and less things to say. A fantasy film with flaws is a fantasy film with flaws, but a comedy show with flaws is just a terrible show, because when the audience starts wondering if you're really funny, your show is finished. The biggest issue with the show is the name. That's it. Call it anything else and this video wouldn't exist. Why are you calling it Willow when you clearly don't care about the original? Why are you using the name of Willow when you clearly don't care about the fans? You do realize that young people are not interested in your old movie for old people. Are you really telling me you need to capitalize on the name of a barely known IP? You do realize that if the show wasn't called Willow, it wouldn't have been so poorly received. One of the most recent attempts at rebooting a family movie is Jumanji. It's a fairly good comparison because they modernized the universe, the tone, the humor, and it was directed by Kasdan's brother. Like the new Willow, the new Jumanji is not a family movie anymore. Regardless of your opinion of Jumanji, it's one of the highest grossing films of all time. There are many reasons to explain this success, but the one I want to point out is audience expectation. Jumanji is a reboot, the Willow show is a sequel. Jumanji makes it immediately clear that it has nothing to do with the first movie. The Willow show makes it immediately clear that it has everything to do with the movie. The trailer makes Jumanji look like a stupid comedy. It is. The trailer makes the Willow show look like a fun adventure with epic music. It's not. Jumanji did not bring back the old cast. The Willow show brought back the old cast. Jumanji has a broad appeal. Willow is a niche show inside a niche genre. Jumanji made a conscientious effort to distance itself from the original movie. There was no point in making a sequel because the kids grew up and the lead actor passed away. It makes creative and financial sense for Sony to make something different with the name Jumanji. People were mad when the trailer released, but in the end it didn't matter because the movie stood on its own. People enjoyed the new Jumanji or moved on because it doesn't hurt the first movie. The way Sony handled Jumanji isn't perfect, but it's far better than what Disney Lucasfilm did. The Willow show is not a reboot for the new generation, it's a sequel. The show is doing all it can to be different from the movie, and yet it's using the same cast, it's using the same characters, it's using the same universe, it's picking up the story where the movie left it. It's Disney Star Wars all over again. If you honestly believe people will just stand by while you're trashing everything they love about a movie, then you're a bigger fool than I thought you were. The targeted audience, the tone, the jokes, the music, the costumes, the dialogue, the bad writing, none of this has anything to do with the movie, period. The finale is rushed like the movie, so they got at least one thing right. The Willow show is a terrible sequel. Lighthearted doesn't mean you can make a clown show. Willow, like Star Wars, is fun, but it's not a bunch of clowns running around doing your mama jokes. This show doesn't know what it wants to be. Let's put silly costumes, Metallica covers, modern dialogue, and teen drama on a 35-year-old property. I'm sure there will be a second season, but I'm also convinced Disney won't get a lot of money out of this. If you want your show to be a funny D&D campaign, then you need to commit to it. Don't stop halfway there, because it's very confusing and it just looks like bad writing. If you're not confident, you're not funny. Slow down on the teen drama, fix the tone, remove Willow in the title, and you have a decent show.
What's your overriding memory of Willow? Just think about it.
It's you, Warwick.
Thank you.
So much love and heart. You were what inspired Peter Jackson's career.